Welcome to Calm Before Dreams, a quiet place where gentle stories and soft atmospheres guide you toward peaceful rest. Tonight's story brings us into the warm glow of a quiet Victorian home. A fire burns softly in the hearth, and the evening settles gently around old wooden walls. Outside, the night grows still. Inside the room, the firelight flickers softly. Memories drift through the air, and time begins to slow in the most comforting way. I'm Atlas, and I'll be your narrator tonight. Our story is called The Quiet Evening by the Fireplace, a Victorian sleep story. Before we begin, I'd love to know where you are listening from tonight. Share it in the comments below. It's always comforting to see how far our calm little community reaches across the world. Now settle in, take a slow breath, and let the quiet warmth of the firelight guide you gently into tonight's story. Now settle in, take a slow breath, and allow the quiet warmth of the firelight to guide you gently into tonight's story. Tonight's story is a quiet one. It is a story of firelight, old rooms, softened voices, and the kind of love that changes slowly over time, becoming gentler rather than grander. I find myself thinking about it now, here in the calm of evening, as the house grows still around me and the steady glow of the hearth settles into its patient rhythm. There will be no hurry here, no loud interruption, no sharp turn, only the quiet unfolding of a familiar room, two lives that have traveled far enough to understand silence, and the small remembered moments that remain warm long after the years themselves have passed. It is the sort of evening that asks very little of the world. If you happen to be listening to this story while the day is fading, perhaps beneath a lamp or beneath the soft weight of blankets, then you are welcome to settle in here for a while. And if you wish, you might even share where you are listening from and what hour the night has reached where you are. For now, though, simply let the world grow still and step gently into this evening by the fireplace. The fire has already passed its brightest hour. Earlier in the evening the flames had lifted high, lively and confident, reaching upward along the dark logs as though eager to claim the whole hearth. But now the fire has settled into a quieter mood. The wood has drawn close together, its outer edges glowing with a steady red warmth while its centers deepen slowly into charcoal. From time to time a small crack sounds from within the logs, not sharp but gentle, like a soft reminder that warmth is still at work inside them. A faint ribbon of ash rises and disappears before it reaches the chimney's shadow. I sit in the chair nearest the hearth, where the warmth reaches comfortably across my knees and hands without ever becoming too much. The chair itself has been with this house for many years. Its wooden arms are polished smooth where countless evenings of resting hands have worn away the smallest roughness in the grain. Across the room the lamplight settles over familiar shapes. The corner of the bookcase, the quiet outline of the piano, the heavy curtains drawn against the night beyond the windows. The room is warm, though not entirely. The farther corners remain cool and dim, and the air near the window carries the faint chill of the sea breeze that always seems to find its way through the town after sunset. On the small round table beside me sit two teacups. Steam rises from them in pale twisting threads, drifting upward into the amber glow that hangs above the hearth. The scent of tea lingers softly in the air, mingling with the dry, comforting smell of warmed wood and faint coal smoke. Everything in the room feels known. Everything feels at rest. And in this quiet warmth, I find myself listening to the small sounds of the house settling gently into evening. The year is somewhere near the closing of the 19th century, in those late Victorian years when the world seemed to be moving forward with steady confidence, though in smaller towns life still followed the quiet patterns it had known for generations. I live in a coastal town called Blackthorn Bay, a place where narrow streets slope gently downward toward the water and where the smell of salt and seaweed sometimes travels inland with the evening air. During the day gulls circle above the chimneys and harbor masts, their calls drifting between rooftops before fading out across the tide. My house stands a little back from the road, built of dark brick with pale stone around the windows and doorway. Ivy has long since climbed the side wall, its leaves shifting softly whenever the wind passes through the narrow lane beside the garden fence. From the front windows one can see the neighboring houses lined neatly along the street. Each carries its own small glow of lamplight behind lace curtains now that the evening has settled. The lamps burn low and steady, like quiet signals between homes that have shared the same view of the road for many years. Inside, the parlor bears the gentle marks of a life that has unfolded slowly and completely within its walls. Books rest along the shelves, some upright and careful, others leaning in easy disorder. A piano waits along the far wall with a folded piece of sheet music still resting above the keys, though no one has played it today. Framed photographs stand upon the mantel, their subjects looking outward with the still patience of another time. The room smells faintly of polished wood, old paper, and the last warmth of tea. And beside the fire, the evening holds its quiet place beside me. Blackthorn Bay has never been a place of grand excitement. It is a town built from habits, from weather, from the quiet rhythm of work that returns each morning much the same as the one before. People here learn the patterns of the street the way sailors learn the tide. In the early hours, shopkeepers lift their shutters and sweep the stone steps outside their doors. The baker's first loaves appear in the window while the air is still cool, their warmth fogging the glass as the town slowly wakes. Women cross the square with baskets resting on their arms, speaking softly as they pass one another. Men walk toward the harbor, the railway office, or the counting houses with coats buttoned high against the wind. Children hurry along the pavement in pairs, their boots tapping quickly on the stones while mothers watch from doorways until they disappear around the corner. The post arrives with its quiet importance, bringing folded news of distant relatives and distant places. By afternoon the town grows calmer again. Shop bells ring less often. The streets carry the slower pace of errands nearly finished. Windows are opened for a little fresh air when the weather allows. Inside houses like mine the day unfolds through familiar tasks. Curtains are drawn back to welcome the morning and closed again as evening arrives. Fires are laid carefully in the grates. Tea is poured at the proper hour. Letters are answered, shirts mended, vegetables prepared. These things may appear small when described one by one. Yet together they form the gentle structure of living. And here in this house the evening hour has always belonged to stillness. Across from me, in the chair that has slowly taken the shape of her over many years, sits Clara. The firelight rests gently along the edge of her shawl, a soft wool the color of faded heather that she draws a little closer around her shoulders when the evening cools. Time has refined her movements rather than hurried them. Her hands are lighter now than they once were, but steady, and when she lifts her teacup she does so with the same calm care I remember from many years ago. There has always been a quiet attentiveness in the way she observes the world, as though she prefers to understand a moment fully before speaking of it. I have known Clara long enough that much between us no longer requires words. There are small habits by which our companionship reveals itself without effort. When I place her cup upon the table, I turn the handle toward her without thinking. When the fire burns too low, she notices before I do and adds another piece of coal with the quiet certainty of someone who has done it many hundreds of evenings before. If I fold the newspaper, she smooths the tablecloth afterward. If she misplaces her spectacles, I find them resting where the afternoon light had fallen last. Beyond our door the town continues with its own familiar circle of neighbors. Mrs. Penrose from 2 houses down calls now and then, bringing news carefully wrapped in politeness. The grocer's daughter delivers parcels when the rain grows heavy. The vicar passes along the street with his head bent slightly forward against the wind. But tonight the world has drawn inward. And here, beside the fire, Clara and I share the quiet center of it. Age has come to this house in the same quiet way that evening enters a room, gradually and without announcement. No single day marked its arrival. Instead it settled in small changes that revealed themselves only over time. I notice it now in the brief pause I take before rising from my chair, as though my knees prefer a moment of thought before agreeing to the task. Clara feels it too, though she speaks of it rarely. She warms her hands longer around her teacup before setting it aside, letting the porcelain share its gentle heat with her fingers. Our letters have changed as well. Once they carried invitations, plans, the cheerful arrangements of visits and journeys. Now they arrive more often with quieter messages. Updates from distant nieces and nephews, notices from old acquaintances, the occasional letter that carries news spoken in a more careful tone than before. The town itself has shifted slowly over the years. Some familiar shop signs have disappeared from the street. The small music shop where people once lingered has become part of a larger draper's store. A row of elm trees that once shaded the square was taken down after a storm many winters ago, and though their absence felt strange at first, the space they left behind has simply become part of the town's shape. Clara and I do not speak of these changes with sadness. Life, we have learned, moves forward whether or not anyone wishes to hold it still. Houses change, streets rearrange themselves, and faces that were once common in the market gradually belong to memory instead. And yet, in this room beside the fire, the quiet we share feels not fragile, but earned. The years return to me now not as a straight path, but as gentle circles that seem to overlap one another in the firelight. One memory draws forward another, the way a quiet tide gathers the water behind it. There were mornings long ago when I left this house before the sky had fully brightened. The streets would still be damp with night air, and my boots made careful sounds along the stones as I walked toward the railway office. I remember turning my collar against the wind and seeing the faint glow of kitchens beginning to wake along the row of houses. Inside, Clara would already be at the table slicing bread, the kettle warming slowly over the stove while the first gray light spread across the windowpane. Those mornings felt ordinary at the time. Yet now they returned to me with a surprising warmth. Afternoons had their own rhythm. Shop windows bright with folded cloth, the quiet exchange of greetings in the market, the steady motion of errands that seemed small but filled the day in a comfortable way. Then evening would arrive. Lamps were lit. Supper prepared. The house settled around us with the familiar sounds of chairs drawn close and dishes quietly set aside. There were seasons, though, when the pattern changed. For a time my work required travel inland, farther than either of us liked to admit. During those months the days seemed to arrange themselves around the arrival of letters. One written in the evening, another hoped for the next afternoon. Some weeks the post came faithfully. Other weeks it did not. But always in the quiet of night, the thought of home remained waiting beside the fire. Clara has been watching the fire for some time when she finally speaks, her voice quiet enough that it almost seems part of the room itself. "Do you remember the winter fair?" she asks. I turn slightly toward her, and the memory rises almost at once, like a familiar tune that has only been waiting for the right moment to return. "The one in Ashcombe Square," I say. She nods. For years I half believed that was where our story truly began, though time has reminded me that the first meeting was smaller and far less polished than the one memory prefers to keep. It was a damp afternoon outside the stationer's shop. The sky hung low over the street, and the stones still carried the wet shine of recent rain. Clara stepped out with a parcel tied rather loosely with string. A passing carriage sent a thin sheet of water across the road. The string slipped, and suddenly several sheets of music scattered from her hands, sliding toward the shallow gutter along the curb. I stepped forward without thinking, catching 2 pages before they touched the water. Another caught beneath my boot. Clara gathered the rest quickly, though she laughed with quiet embarrassment as she tried to apologize for the trouble. I remember saying something rather awkward then. Something about the music seeming unwilling to remain in proper order. It was not clever. It was not graceful. But she smiled. Later that winter we met again at the fair in Ashcombe Square, beneath lanterns that swayed gently in the cold wind, while somewhere nearby a violin struggled bravely through a cheerful tune. The winter fair had been lively in the gentle way such gatherings often were. Lanterns hung between the buildings of Ashcombe Square, their lights swaying softly whenever the wind passed along the narrow streets. Children moved through the crowd with sugared hands and bright scarves, while vendors called out warm offers of roasted chestnuts and spiced cakes. Clara and I had met there by chance beneath one of those lanterns. At least that is how it appeared. In truth, I had walked through the square more slowly than usual that evening, wondering whether I might see her again after our small meeting outside the stationer's shop. When I did notice her near the church steps, speaking briefly with a neighbor, I felt a quiet relief that surprised me with its strength. The wind had been sharp that night. Without much thought, I offered her the warmer side of the path as we began to walk through the fair together. She accepted with a small nod, drawing her coat a little closer while the lantern light brushed across her face. We spoke of simple things at first. The cold weather. The crowd. A stall that sold honey cakes beside the square. Nothing that might have sounded remarkable to anyone listening nearby. Yet the conversation carried an ease that made the walk longer than either of us had planned. We passed the bakery with its yellow window light, then the watchmaker's shop, then a row of houses where someone practiced the piano behind half-closed curtains. Only later did we realize how far the evening had carried us. But neither of us seemed eager to hurry home. The years that followed did not rush forward in any dramatic way. Instead, they unfolded gradually, the way seasons pass along the coast, each one carrying its own quiet character while still belonging to the steady rhythm of the whole. Clara and I built our life through ordinary days. There were mornings when the house filled with the soft clatter of breakfast plates and the quiet rustle of newspapers being opened. There were afternoons when errands carried us through the familiar streets of town, pausing to greet shopkeepers who soon came to know us both by name. Some days were busy, others slower. Yet none of them felt empty. There were small gestures that slowly became part of our life together. Clara often left a lamp burning in the front room when she knew my work might keep me late. Its glow through the window always made the walk home feel shorter. Sometimes I would stop at the confectioner's shop on my way back, bringing a small paper parcel of lemon drops, remembering once hearing Clara mention how much she had liked them as a child. On rainy afternoons we occasionally remained indoors, the weather pressing softly against the windows while I read aloud from a novel and Clara mended something beside the fire. Years passed in this quiet fashion. Not every season was easy. There were winters when money required careful counting, and times when travel or illness kept us apart longer than we wished. Yet through each change the house remained steady around us, holding our days together with a gentle patience that asked only that we continue living them. The fire has settled lower while I have been remembering. The logs rest quietly against one another now, their glow deep and steady, sending out a warmth that feels softer than before. Clara and I sit without speaking for a while, watching the small movements of the embers as they shift gently within the hearth. Outside, a carriage rolls slowly along the street and then fades into the distance. Clara lifts her cup, though the tea inside has cooled. She smiles faintly as she sets it down again, and I realize that neither of us truly needed the tea this evening. The comfort has always been in the sitting together. I reach my hand across the narrow space between our chairs. Clara places hers into it without hesitation. It is a simple gesture, one we have repeated across many quiet evenings like this one. Our fingers rest together easily, as naturally as if the movement had always belonged to the room itself. Around us the house grows softer as night settles gently over everything. Thank you for spending this quiet evening by the fire with me, where gentle memories and warm firelight slowly filled a peaceful Victorian home. If this story brought you calm, you're welcome to like and subscribe for more soothing bedtime stories. Stories to accompany your quiet nights. Sleep peacefully. Let your thoughts grow soft and unhurried. Imagine the fire in the hearth, glowing steadily, as the house settles into the deep quiet of the night. Good night, and may the warmth of this gentle evening follow you into restful dreams.